I, Adil Farouk, do solemnly swear. The words echo through the packed auditorium as a man in his late 40s raises his right hand, taking the oath as mayor of El Paso. The crowd erupts in cheers, but if you look closely, you'll see tears streaming down faces throughout the room. Because 30 years ago, the same man stood trembling at a border station just miles from this very building. He was 17, clutching a battered duffel bag and a heart full of impossible dreams. The guards barely looked up from their paperwork before delivering a verdict that would haunt him for decades. You'll be back. People like you never make it here. Those words, cold, dismissive, final, were meant to crush his spirit before his American story even began. But here's what those guards didn't understand about the scared teenager they just wrote off. Sometimes the people told they'll never make it are exactly the ones who end up leading the way. Have you ever been told you don't belong somewhere? That your dreams are too big for someone like you? If you've ever felt like an outsider looking in, this story will shatter every excuse you've ever made about why you can't succeed. Because what happened next proves that prophecies of failure often become blueprints for triumph. Picture that 17-year-old boy walking away from the border station, those words ringing in his ears like a curse. You'll be back. Adil Farouk had traveled hundreds of miles with nothing but hope and determination, only to be dismissed before he even had a chance to fail. But as he walked into El Paso that first day, something hardened inside him. Not bitterness, resolve. The America that greeted him was nothing like the dream. His English was broken. His pockets were empty, and everywhere he went, people looked at him like he didn't belong. Which, according to everyone around him, he didn't. Another border kid. They'd whisper, as if those two words explained everything they needed to know about his potential. The first month was brutal. Sleeping on a mattress in a cramped apartment shared with 4 other immigrants, Adil would lie awake at night hearing those guards' voices. People like you never make it here. Every rejection stung. Every confused look when he tried to communicate. Every time someone spoke slower and louder, as if volume could bridge the language gap. Each moment felt like confirmation of that border station prophecy. But something interesting happened during those darkest nights. Instead of planning his return trip home, Adil started planning his proof. Not proof that he belonged. Proof that belonging isn't something you're granted by others. It's something you create for yourself. They think they know my story, he whispered to himself in that tiny apartment. Let me show them how it really ends. The next morning he found 2 jobs. Construction during the day, bussing tables at night. 16-hour days became his new normal, but every calloused hand, every aching muscle, every dollar earned was a word in the sentence he was writing with his life. Drop a comment if you've ever had someone write you off before you even got started. Because what Adil did next proves that other people's limitations don't have to become your reality. 6 months into his American journey, Adil's routine was punishing but purposeful. Up at 5 a.m. for construction work, mixing concrete, hauling materials, learning English one overheard conversation at a time. His foreman, Rodriguez, was the first person to see past the border kid label. You're different, Rodriguez told him one afternoon, watching Adil organize tools with mathematical precision. Most guys do what they're told. You're always thinking 3 steps ahead. By night, Adil traded his hard hat for an apron at Rosita's diner, clearing tables and studying the rhythm of American conversation. He carried a small notebook, jotting down phrases, idioms, the musical patterns of English that seemed to escape him during the day. But the real transformation began when Adil discovered something that changed everything: community service. It started accidentally. Walking home from his night shift, he noticed Mrs. Patterson, an elderly neighbor, struggling with her groceries. Without thinking, he helped her carry them upstairs. She thanked him in slow, careful Spanish, assuming he couldn't understand English well enough for gratitude. Actually, I speak English, Adil replied gently. I'm just still learning to speak like you. Mrs. Patterson paused, studied his face, and smiled. Would you like some coffee? I make terrible coffee, but I tell wonderful stories. That coffee turned into weekly visits. Mrs. Patterson's stories became Adil's informal education in American culture, but more importantly, their friendship taught him something profound. Connection transcends language barriers. Soon, Adil was volunteering everywhere. Community cleanups, food drives, youth mentorship programs. People started noticing the quiet young man who showed up consistently, worked without complaint, and somehow made everything run smoother. He sees things differently, Community Center Director Sarah Martinez observed, maybe because he remembers what it's like to be invisible. 3 years in, something shifted in how people saw him. The border kid whispers faded, replaced by, "Have you met Adil?" He's the one who organized the school supply drive. His outsider perspective, initially seen as a liability, became his greatest asset. During a city budget meeting he attended as a community representative, Adil pointed out gaps in youth programming that lifelong residents had overlooked. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "you have to have been on the outside to see what's missing on the inside." Council member Janet Wilson approached him afterward. "Have you ever considered running for something? We need voices like yours in leadership." The idea seemed impossible. Him? In politics? But as Adil walked home that night, past the very streets where he'd once felt invisible, he realized something powerful was happening. He wasn't trying to fit into their America anymore. He was helping build a better one. A college application? From you. The financial aid counselor's surprise wasn't cruel, just honest. At 25, Adil had been in America for 8 years, working double shifts and volunteering every spare moment. College felt like a luxury he couldn't afford. But Rodriguez, now a close friend and mentor, had different ideas. "You're wasting your mind on construction sites," he told Adil bluntly. "Not that there's shame in honest work, but your brain, it's built for bigger things." The scholarship applications were humiliating. Essay after essay asking him to explain his challenges and unique background. Adil hated reducing his journey to trauma porn for admissions committees, but he needed the money. El Paso Community College took a chance on him with a partial scholarship. Adil made up the difference by adding tutoring to his already impossible schedule. Construction, restaurant, classes, studying, tutoring, volunteering. Friends joked that he cloned himself. But in Professor Elena Martinez's political science class, everything clicked. She assigned a project analyzing local government effectiveness, and Adil chose youth services, the area where he'd volunteered for years. His presentation didn't just identify problems. It connected dots others missed. How language barriers in schools led to dropout rates. How lack of mentorship programs created cycles of poverty. How communities with strong immigrant integration had lower crime rates and higher economic mobility. "This isn't just research," Professor Martinez told him after class. "This is policy blueprint. Have you considered graduate school?" Graduate school led to internships. Internships led to advisory positions. Advisory positions led to appointments on city committees where his voice carried weight, not whispers. The transformation was gradual but undeniable. The same community members who'd once seen him as an outsider now sought his perspective. City council meetings that once intimidated him became spaces where his insights shaped decisions. Adil has this gift. Observe City Council Chair Robert Kim. He can translate between worlds. He understands the immigrant experience, but he also gets municipal budgets. He bridges gaps we didn't even know existed. By his early 30s, Adil had earned his bachelor's degree in public administration and was pursuing his master's. More importantly, he'd earned something else: respect. Hit like, "If you believe our struggles prepare us for our purpose." Because what happened next shows that sometimes the longest journeys lead to the most meaningful destinations. The call came on a Tuesday evening in March. Sarah Martinez, now director of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Adil, Mayor Thompson is retiring. We need you to run." The silence stretched so long that Sarah wondered if the call had dropped. Finally, Adil laughed, not with humor, but with disbelief. "Me? Run for mayor? Sarah, I was bussing tables 15 years ago. People still remember me as the border kid." "Exactly," Sarah replied. "That's exactly why you need to run." The decision kept him awake for weeks. Running meant scrutiny. It meant his entire story. The border station, the dismissive guards, the years of struggle becoming public consumption. It meant risking everything he'd quietly built, but it also meant something else. It meant those 17-year-old dreams, locked away for practicality's sake, might actually be possible. His announcement drew immediate reactions. The El Paso Times called him an intriguing outsider candidate. Social media buzzed with both support and skepticism. The phrase "border kid" appeared in comment sections, sometimes as an insult, increasingly as a badge of honor. The first campaign rally was held in Sunset Heights, the neighborhood where he'd first volunteered. 300 people showed up: construction workers, teachers, small business owners, teenagers whose after-school programs Adil had helped fund. 30 years ago, Adil began, his voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. Border guards told me I'd never make it in America. They were wrong about the making it part. But they were right about one thing. I'm not the same person who crossed that border. The crowd erupted. These weren't just voters. They were witnesses to his transformation. His opponent, a 3-term city councilman named Bradley Harrison, tried to weaponize Adil's immigrant status. El Paso needs leadership with deep roots, Harrison declared during their first debate. Not someone still finding his place in our community. Adil's response became the defining moment of the campaign. Mr. Harrison, my roots in this community run exactly as deep as my commitment to its future. The difference is, my roots chose to be here. The endorsements rolled in. The teachers' union, citing his education advocacy. The Police Benevolent Association, acknowledging his community's safety work. Small business groups who remembered his economic development initiatives. But the most powerful endorsement came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Patterson, now 86, who spoke at his final rally. 30 years ago, a scared young man helped me carry groceries. He's been carrying this community ever since. It's time we let him carry us forward. Election night felt surreal. As results poured in, Adil watched districts he'd served, neighborhoods he'd lived in, communities he'd helped build, all choose him to lead them forward. The victory margin was decisive, 63% to 37%. As the numbers flashed across the television screens at campaign headquarters, the room erupted in celebration that could be heard blocks away. But Adil stood quietly in the corner, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had just happened. 30 years of proving doubters wrong had culminated in this moment. The community that had once questioned his belonging had just chosen him to lead it. His victory speech began with a callback that brought many to tears. Tonight, I want to speak to every 17-year-old who's been told they don't belong, that they'll never make it. Tonight, we prove that America's greatest strength isn't in keeping people out. It's in what happens when we let them in. The media coverage was national. CNN featured him in a segment about immigrant success stories. The Washington Post called his victory a symbol of American possibility in an era of division. But the moment that mattered most came 3 days after the election. A young girl approached him at the grocery store with her mother. She was probably 16, spoke English with the same accent Adil had carried at her age. "Mr. Mayor," she said shyly, "my teacher said you used the bus tables. Is that true?" "It is," Adil replied. "I bus tables now," she whispered. "Does that mean I could be mayor someday too?" Adil knelt to her level, seeing his 17-year-old self in her hopeful eyes. "It means you could be anything you choose to be." That conversation reminded him why he'd run. This victory wasn't just personal vindication. It was proof of possibility for everyone who'd ever been told they didn't belong. Today, Mayor Adil Farouk's portrait hangs in City Hall, just miles from the border station where guards once dismissed as American dreams. His story proves that the people told they'll never make it often possess exactly what struggling communities need most: the hunger to prove that belonging isn't inherited. It's earned through service. What prophecy of failure are you still carrying? What impossible dream have you shelved because others couldn't see your potential? Your outsider perspective isn't your weakness. It's your superpower. If this story inspired you to stop asking for permission to dream big, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Next week, we're exploring another incredible transformation, the story of a woman who turned rejection into revolution. Because here at Earthly Tales, we know that sometimes the best leaders are the ones who had to fight hardest to find their voice.